then, I'm just going to do a couple of experiments, or an experiment, to do with shrinkage of this clay. Because I'm starting to get, the further you get into this, into any project, I think project's the right word, the more, well, certainly with me, the more you think about the finer details, and it's sort of, shrinkage is starting to be a thing. And of course you can adjust the shrinkage rate of the clay by adding temper, very fine non-plastic material, or mixing clays together. So I wanted to know what the shrinkage rate was, and first of all I want to cut some identical pieces and see how much they shrink from workable to bone dry. So we've rolled that out to a standard thickness, and should we do it the width of the ruler? I suppose we should, really. That will do. And actually, if we, oops, that's going a bit pear-shaped. There we go. Right, it's a standard thickness. Where are we? $140. No, I can hardly see this lettering. Let's get a better measure. Here we go. I can see this one. Right. If we mark off 100 mil, so if we have this at 130 mil long, yeah, then I'll mark that at 15. Yeah, let's get that out of the way and that out of the way, so then we can mark that at 100. That's 100 mil long. Okay. So this is Thetford 100. Right, of course the next question is, what weight will it be? So we'll switch that on. Got just a little bit of curly clay there. That's at 0. Would you believe it or not, that is 60 grams. Okay, so that's that one. That's the Thetford. Yeah, which is it's a stoneware clay. That it will go up to 1240 degrees without melting. So the next one is, this is home clay. Put that out of the way, put that out of the way. Hopefully that's right. So there we go. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with this experiment, apart from knowing what the linear shrinkage is. But but we might as well weigh it as well, because we can. Right, what were we? 130, wasn't it? 130. 130 is there. And then we marked 15 there. Those are in the way. And 100. So we can measure between those 2 points. And this is home clay, 100 mil long. And where's the scales? Zero there. And that is 51. Same size. I'm just going to check that. Right, that's on 0. 52. 52 grams. But you know, it just depends upon the moisture content. So that weight is a bit arbitrary really. But what's that old phrase? I'll start, so therefore I'll continue. Right, this is some white clay that I picked up, and it's got a lot of impurities in it. I suspect from where it was stored. But I got a bit of this, and I suspect it's a commercial clay. So we shall find out how this shrinks. And if this doesn't shrink as much, then we could use it for blending or mixing to reduce the shrinkage rate. We shall see. Cut the end off. 130, wasn't it? 130. Right. Just loosen that up. 15. And 100. Well, I'll just put white. 100. It's quite interesting, this white stuff. I'm thinking it'll be quite interesting to throw something with it. Right, 66 grams. 66 grams. So the home clay 52 grams, the Thetford clay 60, and this is 66. So this is a denser clay, one assumes, for an equal size and all that lot. So I'm just going to dry this lot now. Just put it on a piece of paper on a board and leave it. Once it's dried a bit, then I shall stack it on its edge so it dries both sides. But we'll just let it dry a bit to start with. And we can come back in, say, a week's time and see how much it's shrunk. Yeah, that'll be interesting. If you get a clay that shrinks a lot, then not only do you have to make your articles that much bigger, like 10% bigger or something like that, but also you might get a problem with the clay changing shape or shrinking in the kiln, so that then you don't get a good glaze fit. Sort of, obviously as the article gets up to temperature, in this case I've been firing at about 1050 degrees, obviously the body of the clay expands because it's heating up, and then the clay not the clay, then the glaze melts over the surface, and then as it cools down obviously the whole lot shrinks. But you can come across a situation where the body of the material shrinks more than the glaze will allow, and therefore you can get cracking of the glaze and all sorts of things. So anyway, we shall see how we get on, and I will get back to you in a while. Okay, here we are. We're about a week later. Thetford, home, and the white. I did put these in the bottom of the oven after cooking, after we've been cooking. I just popped them in the bottom of the oven as it was dry, cooling down. So we've probably lost a little bit more moisture. So I'd say these were well and truly dry, and the only water in these now is the chemically bound water, which we won't lose until we fire these. But as an interim thing, let us just measure things. So that is 91. So it's 91 mil, and it was 100, so therefore it is lost 9%. Yeah, hence the reason for starting off with 100 mil. Now we're on 0 on the scales, and it is dry weight is 45, and it was 60. Okay, now the next one, home clay, is 90. So therefore it's lost 10%, and it did weigh 52 grams. So obviously the home clay is less dense. Now what am I doing? I'm weighing that. That is 41. And then the white clay is, wow, that's 95. So it's shrunk 5% so far. That's interesting. And what's it weigh? It weighs 51, and it weighed 66. Okay, we'll keep those as a record. So that has lost 15 grams of water loss. That one has lost 11 grams, and that one has lost 15. Okay, so maybe the fact that, although it didn't feel like it, but maybe the house clay was slightly drier. Yeah, so it's lost less moisture, and it's lost less moisture, but it's shrunk more. That's interesting, very interesting. So what I'll do is we'll continue with this, and the next firing, which probably be, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, something like that, I will put these in the kiln and fire them, and then we'll add to this. Anyway, interesting, isn't it? Especially this lost 11 grams. Both of those has lost 15 grams. Right. Okay. Finally, we've fired these 3 test pieces on this experiment, and this Thetford one, it was 100 ml long to start with, and then when it was dry, bone dry, it was 91, and fired I would go 89. So how are we going to do this? I'll just 89, yeah, fired. Okay, and the Brighton white is 94. It was 94.5 and it's 94. Well, this is interesting. The difference between bone dry and fired is not that much. This one's a difficult one. I'm going to go, it's either 88 or 89. Let's go 89. And it was 90. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? I just assumed that in the kiln things would shrink a fair bit more, but they don't, according to that. Now the weight of the Thetford, that's 41, yeah, so therefore in the kiln it has lost 4 grams. There we are on 0. Right, the white is 41 also, yeah, so therefore wrong place, 41, so therefore dry was 51, so that's lost 10 grams. Right, and this is 38, which is the house. This is 38, and it was 41, so it's lost 3 grams. So that's a bit peculiar. So what's it losing? That's the question. Is there's probably chemically bonded water within the clay platelets. So it's losing a bit of that, and it's also losing carbon, organic carbon and inorganic carbon. And it's interesting that the inorganic carbon burns off at about 900 degrees. So what I'm doing now is I bring the temperature up slowly like that, and then when we get to 900 I'll go level for an hour and back up, just to burn off that inorganic carbon. Otherwise you get black staining and bloating. So these things, these have lost various weights, which is interesting. And I would have thought the house would lose the majority of the weight, but dry weight to fired weight, the difference is only 3. On the Thetford, the difference is 4, but on this white the difference is 10 grams. So I can only assume with this, you wouldn't think this white has got a lot of carbon in it, because I'm suspecting it's a commercial clay. So that's probably chemically bound water, but that's only a vaguest guess. Anyway, there we go. I shall put a chart up, and hopefully you find this interesting. Catch up with you soon. There you go, there's the chart. Wet length, dry length, percentage shrinkage, fired length, extra percentage shrinkage, wet weight, dry weight, fired weight, and the total loss. So look here, 11% shrinkage total, 11%, 6% on the white. Very interesting.